kind of a bummer today.
Huh?
This is okay. Good evening, everybody. Maybe hear about hello.
Say the prayer. No. Today we will not share our screen on the prayer book. Very sorry. We will share that next time.
Dollar, Nyambe Semchen Tamchi Deva Dante Dumar Che Nyorte Lana Mihibara Yang Tabara Zobe Chanchu Rembo Che Tobara Cha.
All mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and of nations, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly all establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and of nations, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood.
Ti Chi Tu Sama Je Je Wa Tu Nga Yi Son Ge Wa La Goro Ama She Wa Tu Nga Yi Son Ge Wa La Goro Tu De Re Ne Song Ge Nye Ma Sang Da Zang Je
Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until then, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Norjen Changchen Delo Naro Tang Manme Tabo Parin Jikan Gong Gari Sumden Zabe Nam Hekara Zaju Lama Yedam Chujong La Surwan Depso Dao Ju Xin Jie Tene Tanga Zumala Ripin Gurmum Ti Namta Wat Mar Mati Kasang Ti Juk Tiri Malo Ta Tiri Kari Sana Karsang Ta Yom Dami Tamu Ni Lama Jeta Go Sisa Kelang Ratin Du Wati Ta Narobe Ke Narobe ke ta tujian dong qiba ju suo da dor ma jia qi bo yin piu le si gang da ma ruo chang ma bo sta chang de wa ti yong da ma.
So we continued the stories of Milarepa's life, and so we stopped at a point where so then the Lama's wife, then Dangme Ma, then said, I will look for a Lama for you, so that you receive the Dharma. And so there was a feast offering that was a custom by the Naropa of preparing a feast offering, a talk offering on the 10th day of the month. So on that day, she prepared a feast and some beer.
眼见那如此觉做工作把家进步自己有别的对马巴样此觉自己都用解开的有变强进步做别可能这个从解的样啦是从解的部分嘛的用解差不那么样样都能这就解样你样长这个差不那么做了那么呢用些来咱这边毛我们所有人都别给讲用我们现在嘛这把差不 Lama la pu be be ke ma be do de 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 na ra tu bo song be se yom je sim kong na me cha ta na ro be ku je na tu ga be ma ra ga na na me ka ho je ye ke yom bi nga ran ji pa ra che cha fa tu ne te de na sa de na sa song bo je la che ka ja la na 용제 했는데 나라 고바치네 남만 거 전도 부게 zon에 용제 남만 발로 나라 남만 발로 디네 제샤니 소메요 용라라 미신의 더 수전 지지전도 좀비 고원도 용도 미주미가 송카 송제 공 칼레데 전다 제장 주만나만도 그 정도 전배 만만도 베다 남만 현재 정도 시비 옆라 유요 지면도 왜 처음배다 이제 버러네 메요네 예 쇼르 제단 마라제 공시 예히나 딩 송이 좀 쇼비에 가서 송슈비에 나 공파제 교네 등에 원데 사람 보르마 송완도 와 전에 다像芒果长在马尔先铺的讲那马尔电子新闻那路被国家那说话这些年马尔收入马尔印度起的也起的卡家的我去不都这些马尔去了嘛这的Milarepa就那送在这来把当了我这当小队这呢但马尔你嘛开始在但不开始了之前在起的噻工作说这哈恐怕总是哈làm nào cấp trong mà làm đủ thế, còn làm đủ rồi chứ, thế là mà hiện tại chúng tôi hiện rồi sống là nó sẽ mà là hiện nào có chứ, thế thì quan trọng là cái số lượng, nghĩa là thà là một số lượng đủ, và thế thì giống như
thế. So they drank a lot of beer during the talk offering, and then Marpa became drunk from the beer and fell asleep, and then meanwhile the Marpa's wife, she took the Lama's seal and some gifts he had received from Milarepa, and then gave that together with a cloth to Milarepa and said, so now go off to this disciple of Marpa, and request the Dharma from him. So then Milarepa took those offerings and he left. And then after a while, then Marpa asked his wife, so where is the great magician now, Milarepa? And she said, yeah, he had gone. And he asked her, where did he go? And she said, well, you did not give him the Dharma, you only scolded and abused him. So he went to search for another Lama. And when she said that, then Marpa's face turned grim, and he asked her, when did he leave? And she said he left yesterday. And then Marpa thought to himself, then sure, he hasn't gone far yet.
Chỉ cần để bằng hay chỉ bằng gì nhỉ dùng bề cầm nhỉ cha sẽ vào thằng là mấy cái quốc gia phương này chẳng là gì mà bề lập dự chế cha sẽ lâu đó chúng ta đến đây xin lưu lệ của nó chú cũng chế đạo phong mà đó suy nghĩ chỉ có thằng cha bà sang nghe sao là chúng này chú con này chúng này mà bề thùng địa xin này ngắt thì là chú dùng cái mà dùng bề để dùng chắc là nó cũng như thằng tụi nó mà ra cái nó dùng bề cha bà thế này nó áp dụng từ trên trong làm mấy trong từ áp dụng từ trên 一般都thế去东南普遍那么你啥，就我那路北古年头头那边嘛那个，我懂我那边工匠这些我那几个现在他呢，就咱们那啥学吃饭，那么些都当讲这种目前，有头像阿婆推荐些些把它送的家，些把它这个地别给吃饭那些，就那些的，就是俺像这啥些像这刚就这样些的呢，在码头都人家咱们也没吃呗吃呗。是真当说吧，身旁的就为接下这些桥边上见下这些不妥对象呢，点上班就把样呢，点就是叫他的那就别用，我就不都直接这边的那看怎么不就能推荐那个同我俩都别就学我俩那为我把他在这街别就别那都不见他突然别马那个过完一在那边现在那没干一把他往他的话尽量去过去不是动过娘把又被穷了，你别突然间不俺看他可能也弄那。这吧，某某种做成一步一步，那么就给家，我这是吧？这跑今年往大他妈去办一种的年上班的零年吧，俺这吧去了是吧？当年我特别去了，我也这个这不然一我上边俺妈他那没干，一咱们说去门头没是吧？同他们都别这样子来查去就去了别的呢，就那是吧？就去也帮我当的也为去乱就把当地那对是吧？人过年穷也给么事儿都。 Kansa ngö chen do be de je zam ne de ne ni mu ji da yu song be yo de mo ji ne yu de da yu song ne chum chen xie ti ne ga be chu ma ke wa nu so ke so so de ne se ta chu ne de be ke yu ni ke de ta chu rong de chen tam ji la me de song ne ke mo chen ma no ba jong jong de se ba dong de chu lo ke ne de ne chi jiang se ba ji jiang yang man ba ba mo la se che me bu ba chu lo ne be chu che gu ji yu我真的，咱没来的话，上课我准备上，我就可都是要啥的，比如空要恰起的，空遇到你这些啥的，把这我就可都是啥，这个点的也不，从咱们点的也不在，从从空马瑞路距离都是怕恰起的，嘛我把球上面打过用啥的，这样说虽然在大学是在体育，这阿本出现领导是啥？这拉对这空加拉扎新闻那罗国家土壤的马拉个，这所有我这所有，这里。我做申请这个，小孩排列，我做申请这个是最早些我等都有的，这咱这说铺了，我他要不从从啥，这样的现在是6年我拿上这些呢，打工作之类的不多呢，现在忙不。
And so, as it in Milarepa, then he arrived at Norebo Kyungding, which is the residence of Lama Ngokpa, and at that time when. During his arrival, Lama Ngokpa was giving a teaching from the Mahavajra Tantra, and so when he arrived, he made prostrations, and Lama Ngok already saw him prostrating, and he thought it's a very auspicious connection that he arrives at this particular juncture of the Dharma teaching. And also the manner of his prostration is used by the disciples of Marpa. And so then he asked his attendants to look for who that is. And then they went to see who it is. And then they returned and said, it is the great magician, so Milarepa. And so then Milarepa came in the presence of Lama Ngokpa. And then he made offerings, and the offerings that Dharma gave him, Naropa's ornaments and the rosary. So then he acted like these are really the offerings of Marpa, when actually they were taken secretly from Dharma. So then he offered them to Lama Ngokpa with a request to receive the Dharma. Koji bo chuna so mando usbe naro si ze yet chi yo rat le te marwe ke na ngo chu so je ke la me ga yin ke te me wa da ma na so se te na ya chi lo. And so what this letter said, so he delivered a letter supposedly written by Marpa, but not really. But in there it said, I'm quite busy these days, so therefore please take him under your wings and teach him the Dharma. And then Lama Ngokpa said that, so since this is the Lama's command, I will give you teachings. 真的老用为给咱这就给蒙博区现在之后能给你这个提你俺咱们会插把一般都就那10万的那把结束前天或者也有给把去用大桥的话下做所技术的呢我呢这个蒙博如果你别那么就跟人家长这边蒙博去对前的给不要呢那没说的那么目前的特别就那我们这个呢从这个这见到那边现在我们之前知道这美国俺那我们现在就把那么其他人厂家吧有别给家家问题给的吧 有把他那设备这些新疆那么，蒙把企业界我把做别上这边，国际通嘛这边天花那边就你说这些没结吧，搞把企业没艰难的那一种的，他那这公把设备，全国些多别若他们几好说呢哈，这个这今年讲那么不是啥人就有个说有说用那么。上节我说同我的个那的让个娘呢，咱那是节目现在成一年把这那几多给往过的马上这边那么点啥同学抽点看到的吧，有个些都。 普通些见到把这种人到这来这边，那么就那些因为就我们讲我把的说起我因为就我们讲嘛的干嘛着的呗，你们这样嘛这那么现在我们最简单的反正知道吧，就没这样嘛就拿学别这些就办的了，甚至是民呢你们可以有点没见对没别其他啊啦，听的我们也那么讲干嘛着呢？其他那东我们也建议那刚才的呢，你估计我们现在人间全把那些全部拿来。 就马让马货不然嘛别头先把些工都让别你如今呢工业就别是那么这马办都的
我真的，咱经常来要我穷说是俺龙把你研究期间都就什么都，谁来会拍不都？晓得那没干嘛着嘛？嘛这个穷，但呀，俺让咱们就求去那，我就离块钱吧，谁来拍？你谁来拍的？他性格嘛不出来当啥了？晓得这谁嘛不行都，谁嘛不，这时候也可以那面咋说的？我一想啊，求去真的用那种恰似的，那面经常是生产过嘛的是，那时候没吃他妈有的是，因为毛把经常上节可能说过托嘛节的是，地方里面上节就嘛的是，我听这种的是，这节了也没经常的意思，我们家的属于你嘛休息的，怎么能把跑的都是这里光被一切托，这里他这当嘛几多看我当嘛我们意思晓得，你们托的全节什么都是，我会跟。但可能呢，是马瑞去干嘛呢？你嘛加拉扎什么的过都是，我这基本上贴吧金融的，我就日本的这两波没接触，可能没，因为他刚才在光是哪种是，这可能呢，我那是学普嘛，从谁的？那因那马瑞干活的这个学啥的，那是他们从事。
Yeah, so then, so then Lama Ngokpa said, I will teach you the Dharma, but it's actually excellent. It's good timing that you're here because there are some certain people who cause a lot of trouble for some of my disciples. So before I give you the Dharma teachings, you first have to cast a hailstorm on their fields. And then after that, I will give you the Dharma teachings. And so then Milarepa thought to himself, so again, I will have to perform a terrible evil deed. But then, so if I don't cast the hailstorm, I will not receive the Dharma. Also, it's the command of the Lama. So therefore, he agreed, and he also cast this hailstorm. And during this hailstorm, many birds had died. And so then Milarepa piled up the dead bodies of all these small birds and brought them to Lama Ngokpa. And he cried and said, see what a terrible sinner I am. Here's all the animals that I have killed now is the hailstorm. And then Lama Ngokpa said, you don't need to worry because we have the lineage of Milarepa and Milarepa and their instructions, and so that there's this a certain instruction whereby a terrible sinner can still swiftly become a Buddha, and I will assure that these beings will not take birth in the lower realms, and so then you will certainly not take birth in the lower realms. So you don't have to worry. So as a kind of to prove his point, he then performed a miracle and then caused all these dead birds to come back to life. And so then the birds all came back to life, and Milarepa developed great faith and trust in the Lama, and really saw him as a Buddha. And then the Lama gave the Hepatra empowerment and teachings and told Milarepa to go and practice them. So then Milarepa practiced them. However, no experience whatsoever occurred from that practice. And so then the Lama was quite puzzled, and he said, how is this possible? There is no stain of a broken commitment in this lineage. You came here with great faith. So if you wouldn't have Milarepa's permission, then why would he send all these precious gifts? So the Lama was quite perplexed, but at that time, Milarepa still didn't dare to tell him the truth.
Tene Lama Marabes in current road, you get on the media, Lomba, the baby to China, Chi, Kolumbaji, Choshi, Chelamona, Shopi, Tankin Rata, Katan Ramney, Bondo, Bompiche, Chiba in Vietnam, Chinola, Cho, making Mangan, Serio, but and over the Chico, Namamo, who get one as on the media Chapa, the him. Mangati Yobando, Zon, be America, Madrovanda, Zon, be Damima, Aranke, Namika, Chafande, Nam, Yom, Jena, one and there is yi te da ran ni tong mi ji do la me ga ma ro na yun de je wa no mi che ta mi te chen la zong wa no ro ma ro xu be ta na da chen se lan ro xu be 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 za be ma nam za de won na be mo na za ne nge pa dun de song ti wan sam la song te ne de be tu se me ke ko ne nge ho ga la chung be ram ni zang ze je chen dong ling ma ro so do be yong je ke ne ngi je me ze je chi jian do sam dan bo do ke te mi je chi do zo me mi sa do jian do xu be ko de li ba ko ne都是的，让这玩意的主些种别个的，那么个个去给他看的，把中人间别学些这边用这巧来有其他。现在可从那个学真正的像这边什么情况呢？用种的学习这方面，咱用这节目这方面呢，学方面呢，有没东边的也里过来的，把人巧别那学了一些像也给了，他让来学了没给网上的嘛，那完都是那没给，我怕当的那学就把我们家长的不管呢，他就从查是的，真的咱Marweke ngõ chụp được cái gì làm đâu ta nghe cái dân cao của họ ya thông đâu thế dân cao của họ thông ya đó sẽ tham ăn được để chiến đấu chỉ chính số这种人那些呀这种人小人不要看我们 T 恤我这里nghe mình nghe thế là有啥这 T 恤我làm đâu thế ngõ chụp được cái đó mình nghe là thằng chỉ chỉ làm bây giờ làm cái có rồi什么的是他从事这用是那什么那么个方面的我这个从哪面的看的都是我这就总是真的他这年到这个嘛的是他从事真的提起了这没这类从事这个整个没把送啥的这用开始从这里用给的那从学是那从是哪怕学是不你对这么的这都是他的这流程这个嘛咱都是这个学的他用查来有透过的其他学的学监督了学在这什么的当这年嘛可能说俺们这都他学家帮我通州过头了他要他学他们都这应用给他突击什么的让这个生产轻松说你那学啥的大问题那学的都学在这里就让学的毕竟没被忘的嘛那啥的是提醒都是一个的所以这个上出个之后听了他就轻一些
So then he stayed on, and so then one day a letter arrived at Ngokpa's residence. So a letter written by Marpa, sent by Marpa, and so the letter said that so now I am finishing up the construction of my son's Damadote's tower, and the roofing still has to be constructed. So since it has to be a golden roofing, please send any offering that you may have, and then come to celebrate Damadote's coming of age. And so then Lama Ngok, when reading this letter, he realized that Milarepa must have never, and it said that. And you have a certain evil person with you, so bring him with you as well. And so then Lama Ngok realized that, so from the way this letter was written, that Milarepa didn't actually receive the Lama's permission to receive his Dharma teachings. So then he confronted Milarepa with this, and so then Milarepa admitted that he actually did not have the Lama's consent, and so then the wife of this Lama then gave him a die, playing dice, and so the Milarepa hadn't played dice in a while, so he really felt like playing dice. So he took the die, since it was touched by the Lama's wife, and he blessed his crown with the die, and then he had a desire to play dice, and he played, and he threw it up and then into the sky, and then it fell back down. And so when it fell back down, so he threw the die down, and when it fell back down, it broke open, and a scroll of paper appeared inside of that die, and in there was a letter by Marpa's wife saying that so now Marpa will give an empowerment and teachings, and he will give you these instructions. So you are invited. So please come together with Lama Ngok. And Milarepa was so overjoyed when he read this letter that he started to dance back and forth in his cave.
Tene lama ngo pe hin o tu chen ga rang yang gang ba zang ru de qi ke zong ne lama ngo hua dang lama ma be ke nang we chen nam nang dian lama to gu song tu dian yu ji tang zi yu tang ku da nang ke dai dang da ge mo ke gang ba cha ba ma to chu ju ji me zi ma huo zong te ma to nang qi ke no ra tang nang ke no ru gu chen ne yu be lama rang la mu ji chu ji ngi ji na ngi la yang pian po ji ji la me ma ba dang ji sa kan ji ke chen yu ke na chu mu ke yong dang mi na pu ji cha sen ke zong ne tu ji ke na te ne la ma tang hua de be chu bo long da le be yu na me xin ne wang tu jian wu la song chang yong jie chung tu ni na yong wan dou xu chang xie in na dou xu na me ke wu la qin de to ma la ji ji jia tang du ji bu ne ke la ma ngo be ke wo hua zhong xin dou be sun jiang se na ma xu xu be yong ji xin ne ji le ke la ma shen kang tu xiu yu be se ke ji xu xuo zong ne Lama sim kang la song ne xie xia zhuo ne tu la xiong dou be jia dang ta you pu be xie no de sei so no de pu be lo de sei那么到了样个穷堂接下每一讲样嘛回归生头天当自运作的来说有多脚别且呢穷有把它这么多边强些的玩家学别那么那么土家人呢生活的多的这个那个电脑中上边么家就得去给您个且用为就苏干起个这样起个听嘛这样米别过头着家说开心的用啊俺老是进步些是吧没用他让老其中呢那么个用啦学别那么用那么劳动别给我进么进步一点是吧其他的那么个你进等中呢那么我也没有说我我头也把没得在铺那我学别给我让着中呢买车班个了强国呢用这些呢是吧现在的呢罗扎弄把没他们介绍的这咱们都在行动情况上面多么说这边动这头那么没别给这一边工的说真的他tene da lama ngo panyam se lama ngo pa pa du kona du nord sama kiti se da marvek na shal tare ka he yoro ata marban de yom ro ata da tare ra gamba cha des te ra gamba cha ta ro tu sama res te cha te men ju te sama kiti se dan ro sons te lam ga le mo da cho long de la ka tu xian qian lang yan song ro tare cha na se mi zong na zo yong de zo lo se na sons marwa ya tar ka yom ji tambo yom dang mi tamang ji se re marwan ji ze song marwa sambo xie 가는 소문으로 이제 쇼서도 Milarepa tere chance de que quem bater par seison tere antes quem bater som quem bater par seisons tere da na machina nada compensação dos aí tem um outro que do jeito de pia do com chance não já leva assim do pega compensação de tá na geral som de ficar de nos da jude nin bo sama ki de suma do gang de mis por tudo que a gente de suma na losa sim bo de car suma chi to gres他怕丢东西，但哪东西？这用在学用两个你分着，那么恐怕偷东坡的，他让你着才有些，你那也没有你不是吧？用那万多什么话，那么我会抢上都是那边，他按着其他的用什么的工作什么钱意思。这说咱们他妈说那样的，咱这是他们都得，提人家是这个，他做啥吧？
So then they set out. Lama Ngok gathered all of his possessions to prepare as an offering for Marpa, and along with just all he left behind was the gifts given by Marpa himself. Aside from that, he took everything he owned, except for one goat that had a broken leg and so couldn't walk, so that was left behind. So then they departed, and then Lama Ngokpa said to Milarepa, great magician, you first go ahead and inform Marpa's wife, Dagmema, that we are coming, and see if she maybe will send some beer for us. And so then Milarepa went ahead and he met Dagmema first and offered her a bag of cheese, and then said, so Lama Ngok is coming, so please prepare some beer for him. And so she was very overjoyed and went straight to the Lama's residence to report. And so then Shetland Mangok is arriving, and we have to prepare some beer. But immediately Marpa was quite angry. He snapped his fingers and he said that when I returned from India, no, when I returned from India, no one came to welcome me. Not even like a lame bird came to greet me at that time. So therefore he said like it's not possible then to send him anything. And so anyways, the wife reported back, and so first the Lamangokpa arrived, and the ceremony was held to celebrate the coming of age of Marpa's son Tamadote.
Terwa lama gadi jana surwa de gibaran jan ni jan ni dong mi be trahi ni dong mi be trahi ko trahi te jan de trahi ko dama sambo ni do dama samo ni na na no chu be trahi ko trahi te jan ting de ko marwalo sa ngara marwalo sa la samo ni je trahi ko trahi te jan ting de ko lama ye dan kan ro zo chela o ro trahi ko ko jan lo ma ko so la te ba tham se trahi ko trahi te jan ting de trahi ko用大年的没钱人，推荐所说这些浙江听的说，来当家吧，咱姐姐强求，如果强求这些浙江听的来说，那是这边这，他的能前途这边这些浙江听的说，在做什么件他们呢？这些这些公啦，这些浙江听的我在这些在地方做，在中大中在开始那他那么一档子做其他有没有这些的？我真的那么什么这种能出米的这些用了的，我真的那么一档的这种我做用了这些，这都罗马这种特别他们这些用了这些，我这个呢一个但是用大这种了推荐所呀这些，我在他们列车吧，他们那么多用了这些，我在中大中特别多。我
and so then during the celebration, then Lama Marpa sang a song of auspiciousness, and so he in this song he praised the auspiciousness of the lineage and the great blessings of the lamas and the yidams, and the unmistaken oral instructions, and the cities bestowed, the accomplishments bestowed by the Yidam deities, and the great devotion of the disciples, and the fortune of the patrons, and so on.
他这几点在那里嘛，那个都，天呢，那么我把那铺呢，的那么人们不去接着打给另外一双，我送了那么让忘了，他俩去把这让那让嘛，什么刚下些么接。让能接些么一边给把汤，去把这刚把下班的我们别为这有那个那么那不为往常的嘛，是么去把这先把年纪小的给他嘛，突然这边学别家别那么嘛那边几天在那那年3年往那么他接都是这边那个我们各位现在的上节别给他嘛，去把这小的他嘛啦那边给那么看着大家参保有个给把汤刚把下吧啦下啦嘛铺那我干嘛的这边。 那么现在那么就让的检查罗些别这把给推过来就让那么我别给怎么样让那铺那个家做那这种那种的就让那铺那种这面那的天人面那级别我那么话题过穷的那么加对块的那么呢 为了嘛，新春节的咱是罗马节，咱这次吧穷着吧，因为咱们刚俺来咱们让这个过去穷的就7万多吧了，5万一种，往他的话7、8件个那么些那我真的他工作嘛，那么我给当年另外一双长马去那往个的是，我他当马咋进步的，当年长马朋友是那么刚把去掐的，在面去在长马朋友是这帮这见过的，真多都听到是，他们是长马朋友是的，往当马7、8件，咱弄他话是年小的些。 Tiki Dama Sonarochi, the Huris, Marvik, what I did not Dama Sami Samang much, Manchester and science. Tanya Shori to Gajayoris, say, now Gona Rama Ganchat, Marina Galika Boris, no, this, love you. Rama Ganchat had done Lana Puna, Nagare, what it, touch your answer, Landi Puna. 나기레스는 다 배타는 거라 배제 공부 잡선 파니마 주산 인간로고 소니마 주산로고 저와 디워가 공부하면 되는 뭐라는 거 말와 저한테 테나만 반로 손스 라트 개와 코드 이슬 솔레 손스 텔레비전에 다 장아로만 좀 서버트 충전 거래스 나라 라가마 차데스 요미 체파만도 시나 추 체와 노야 뜻고도 어 된좀 손스 담아서 나온 거지 지만한 거 개차레스
So then when he finished singing his words of auspiciousness, then Lama Ngokpa presented all his offerings and said, so you already, a precious master, you already are the master of my body, speech, and mind. So now on this occasion, I'm offering you all my livestock, all I own, except for one quite old goat that had to be left behind because she could no longer walk. Her leg was broken. Everything else is offered to you. So now, therefore, look upon me with compassion and grant me the instructions, the specific instructions of it's called the oral scrolls. And then Marpa replied, then, I have given you all the most of the profound instructions and empowerments of the Vajrayana vehicle. To receive this remaining last instruction, however, you will have to bring me that old goat. Even though she is quite old already, if you want to receive these teachings, you have to bring that goat. And so then Ngokpa set off to return home to his residence to bring back the goat. But so that was not very close. Obviously, he had to walk. At that time, there were no cars or anything. And probably it took him 10 days just to walk in one direction. And then he had 10 days to walk back. And so he did, and he went back to get the goat. He carried himself and the goat and arrived with the goat. And the Lama Marpa was very pleased and said, as you are a true Vajrayana disciple who maintains Samaya. Actually, I have little use for the goat, but I needed to emphasize the great value of the Dharma. And so then after having received the goat, then he gave him all the, he promised to give him the important empowerments and instructions.
What you do that you don't have that you know can talk about separate time was on Ragewa for Lelo Marwati Corona man we can pass on drink Maradara Sonara words. What is that? Master that's going but he chiva don't Chidmenta my reason Dora you make about it I Marizina get a match not going to
and so just to give a background about Lama Ngokpa. Lama Ngokpa was one of the main disciples of Marpa, and he is actually a very significant lineage holder that also appears in the Kagyu Ngangzu, which is the collection of the various Kagyu Tantras, and in particular the tantric lineage of Vajra. Most of the Vajra lineages in the Kagyu tradition trace back to Lama Ngokpa. And so he was a hard disciple of Marpa. And of course, Milarepa also became Marpa's hard disciple. But in terms of the lineage, the tantric lineage, Ngokpa is a very important lama, and so most so most of the Kagyu tantric lineages, like especially in terms of Vajra, trace back to Lama Ngokpa. And so when Marpa now had asked him to bring back that goat, actually, obviously, Marpa had no need for that goat. And also, it was not easy for Lama Ngokpa to bring that goat. It's very far, and he had to carry it with his own hands. So Marpa would not accept that he would send somebody else to get the goat for him, but he demanded that Ngokpa himself goes get the goat. And so that is because Marpa wanted to make the point and prove at a point, or emphasize the great value, the importance of the Vajrayana teachings. And also Lama Ngokpa is a very important Lama of Milarepa himself. So often when he refers to his gurus, he refers to them as Lama Marngok, so Marpa and Ngokpa.
Lama Jambor so saying the chatting of the Jedi Mokon Chudor Chu, Tobagawa, the 7 million, the Lawan Gorwatama, but you said Ji, San Jan Chubari, Lama Toda, the Toda, Jan Chubala, Lama Toda, Chambu, we can do Lama Bochidala. Lama Ranke to Jan Wan Gorwa, the Maton is on the Chata Naro, Gujan to Bemaragana, Namara, Gadrobala, no, you may bagajon, Tunji me by chance and the general to be told to wedding of La the 10 to take connections, Yan Ton of it, that would do not Jaki, Meton, whatever. Dark Dala, Yom Kenon, could be hard to see the singing Ketty and the Yom Chamber, Che be Yom Sorone, Gon de Ching de Che de Chondo, Chokan, Cho de Goji Bella Megola, Charity in the version of Pachu Seva, much over watching to Naro, going to the Maragata, Lame Tine Lama Mopane to Lama Mopane Cha Pune Gujan to Domine to Chere Chung, Layan Approaching, and Rochuba Pane, Muchere, Chase, Lameka Madrona, Che Chidom, Yomota, Nana Megawatan, Che, Jisun Mizina, Gaya Chorona, Jipachi, on the Una da di depci ve shola la mala yomla wajar shung se ne tanem chunde meto bankara di kwa mba so wa de jemna she du te chima melu to ne ji wa melu to she du ji wa ji para shu ji para chi de la mai song ne jin cha min ne abun tu chen ta ma ji ja re ga lan da nga ke phung kam jin shi ta le la len da sa mi be yong we ke tu da ma ba na po na da si be ni pa yu be si be jemna di kwa chi ba yin da lo lo rang so ji yin na di je wa mi ti be ko wa chi la ji ba sam ba sam jor pong ta dong Lama Namazi Manana Nama Shina Chutobangi, Shihidana, Palachaba Nama Yarasun, Tula Mazuni, Rega, Yarachuni, Shuka, Renga, Marash. Simsu Dinangani, the La Jali Shiba Yina, Mena Kedi, Chitania Bedunga, Setu Dikla Chimbo, Chibi, Chuchu, Cherete, the Budungan, so the season Yabaguna Chimacha, or Metonwa Jamado, Jushin, and Jekin, the Ga he chung te ne do mara yi go ne dik je jang me le men zi ni pa bo sta marwa te ni ma te ta sa ma sa za so kong tra le mu ni he se ko ko na za ju pa rin bo za sha se shou din dos te za shou de te ne te la ma ngo pa se chu ni tu ba ga se me chen mo ngan de chu wang long ti na ya ka ri se te gap chung dang song se te dang du te na ma chi rang gan chor de ti tu dang be ma ra ga so na do se nga te ni pa mi ba se ba yu song se chu te ka ri chung se la song se de e ni ke ro be na be shi shi na chung so yon na song de ni se te ju pa song ma yon ti song yon pang bo ko chuo 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 ti di no chuo song se chuo di de te ka ba chuo kang de ze la se go ja ti se go ja bi de ma ba ji ji go de dong 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 te ya shu se de chuo de o dong chuo ti se de that Milarepa hana shison the gasa ranch jas samsons. The device is that chun to him those samsons. The ranch jar just those machine parts. What in this that's a device to chiva then I mean to be bring it to teach ons show here. That is exactly.
So then,
this was so long shots. He said, Jealous so long, what you're not that, some more what you know. Jealous, you know, not
so then, so then a bit later, there was a smaller group of disciples who had gathered and for a feast offering, and Marpa sat there with a long wooden staff, so resting at his side. And so then he asked Lama Ngokpa, so what is the reason for you giving him empowerments and instructions? Why did you give these instructions to this evil man? And then Lama Ngokpa replied, said, it is because you sent me a letter directing me to give him the empowerment and instructions. And together with this letter, I received your offering of the holy object that you received from Milarepa, the rosary made out of a ruby. So I thought that this is your command, so I felt no regret giving him the instructions. And so then he asked, so where did you get this? He asked Milarepa, then looking at Milarepa, so this ruby rosary that you offered to Lama Ngokpa, where did you get this from? And Milarepa was terrified. His heart just ached, and he was so scared he couldn't say a word. And then he said, well, your wife gave it to me. Meanwhile, the wife, already anticipating this, had already gotten up and left. She'd already fled somewhere else to another shrine room, and she shut the door, closed there. The Lama tried to catch her, but she already had the door shut. So he just could like scratch on the door a bit and then return to his seat. So then Milarepa was heartbroken, and he felt, this is how I've spent my life, just committing sins, not receiving the Dharma. It's better if I die. So Milarepa then made preparations to kill himself.
Oh, sorry.
And then I'm sorry. And then Marpa demanded from Lama Ngokpa to bring him back, bring back the rosary or the offerings that Milarepa had brought.
That's one part that I want. I'm not now. That one. That's it. That that's the question. That my one. I'm not now. He got it. What? This one part one. I'm not now. One the reaching be jitu na mama be jisu si be jia jia the chance. Or that's the one that my Lord.
So this completes the chapter of where Milarepa had purified his evil karma, his negativities and obscurations, and so then. Next comes the chapter of how he actually engaged in practice.
Then Chava Nam Yar Chomar Chomara Jena Lama Gompa to Chibing on the one at Damima, there shows who is on Yom Dan Chani, watch Sochava Shan of Carson, Lamamopa, Lamega, Narobi, Guyan, Tudamima, Shores on Banana, Chumba, Che, the Gochin upon to Chan, Cuba, the Dambujan, those on the though Tata showed that she should be Lama, she should be Maba Jab, Zanga, Lama, Tendava, Gujin, Bashin, Miki Holo, Nikiva to who shows on the Chaban, the Namang, but then the metal shin, the Madian to you, Damani by pair by Huki, Lamin, Jana Gavada, Ningboda, Lametron to Tukin and Drovami, Gavami, Chin, Gajon, the Chamber Man, Yam, Tene, Mukin, DB, Namang, Chavanga, Theatre, Chong to Avon to change, Namaku, Chong to Gudrun to Drono, Amdo, Tivan and Madina, the Comantin and those don't be Namachabe, Namama Bajutana, not enough for the Tata Chima Gotan and Rojo in Damima who was on what that Today, Mabaya compassion, that Lamanga Karachi, the Chava Himba Karshin, those last ones. Lamanga Patati, Naru Gujan, Langa Royachi, I want to chance as a Kada and Shika, lead those Romans, said, Mabra Jencha, Zanga, Nomazo, Takunda Gorista, Kona now who shows on this, then now I am Boyati. And then now, as a Magina, Nutrition, consumer, Cesarista, not this Madim, Maraya should use Marvik. That Yama enough for them, but it's then wrong so to change for is. That you almost get down for lessons.
So then in the new chapter, then so then the Marpa's wife appeared before Marpa, and Marpa asked her, so where has Rinchen Dorjee and gone? And she responded, just according to your command, to bring back the ruby rosary of Milarepa. He prepared to get the rosary, and he went outside. He left, and so then when the so then she so this is got the teaching culture
Yeah, the Kadan that he knows Kadan that Rash Jabon
the and so so then she continued. So then the great magician made requests to Lama Ngokpa, and Lama Ngokpa is with him now, giving him advice. And so she shared the whole scene in detail. And when Marpa heard it, a tear ran down his face, and he said, so those a disciple of the Vajrayana should be just like them. And so then this did he chila karere
Dijela not to do the art for the Lara, the W Milarepa Karzamsen. That's it. Mozonam Janama Toshina. Could you just say your race? And I Toshina, could you just say your Marizam, do not see your Rasha? Then I'm going to take Tangaya and Rosona to change the conjugal Chisaris, Marva the shoe force, Marvaya, Suchaya, Nasoniam, Roach over the West Chiris. The Marvek Yama in a coat dance, Tadan drunk so to change Easter, to Yaki down for Yomchina son, then to change down horse and those.
And so Marpa then sent his wife to call him back, to call him Ngokpa. And so then so he said, so this is so Milarepa thought to himself, I'm just an evil person, and I lack any fortune. So if I went into his presence, he would only scold me. And so he just sat there weeping, wanting to kill himself. And Lama Ngok so was about to depart, but then he remained because he knew that he thought that if he would have left, then Marpa would have just scolded and abused Milarepa even more. So he stayed around, and so, however, when then the wife came to call them back, actually, she said, this time on this occasion, the great guest that Marpa wishes to receive is the great magician Milarepa, and so then the lady was very happy and said, so please come this morning.
Then Yom Zoma Atanji, the Abu to General Shwaji, Sinzi Bando to the Yubeta, then the Churana, who Naraya, Kachum, Majum, Davachi, Tadu, Dana, Madame, Netis, Timothy, Lamechin, Dana, you meet to go and to get the good joint, Masobe, Randuki, Kalina, Shibekunajo, Chatami, whom is more, was in Yichiva, Mahuba, then Zombie, you know, making much of the gesture answer, but then one day on the Namre, so no, yes, Jula, there by the Chundo, Baratuma, Tibet, and Walla, Dami, Gorova, Mago, Muton, watch to channel one, Gorove, the Martin, BC, Monta, Man, he is what you wrote over the John you can be a Manda, Janan, Tamchi, Chucho, Swimba, Uteba, Mo, Chancho, Chewana, Chomago, Teba, Malochi, Larangi, Chimbogan, Gotona, Chimamelu, Lemago, Pungo, Dami, Sanjaba, Tetaramajon, the deputy Habi, Luba, Domima, Lochon, Onjan, the Subjan, Subjan, Taba, Chimboji, Mabugon, Sajiba, Taji, Surton, Mergan, Yitan, Damanam, Chide, Rubiana, Mayanki, Yumbani, Gabachi, songs. What in it? They young dummy, such a Marva Beto, then needed Nala got on Masons, game of short. That's your short say that they want to mean as answers, Marita Sundita. Chiton Yaki, Tuchin Dog, Divajanchi, Dog down is Matoteki. She didn't come a jazzon, like she wait for Palais to Grace, or she wait for Lena Diglas. What in do you that dummy make you exude corner on Gortachine? Monetine is down around the Ichi button, down Masons. Monetine Ichi, good down on the Pungo Tommy Sanjay. Jeva Hian Lamago, Melulamago to you, Sinata. Tata Chum Masons, Sinata, Ichi, Chimbo Gida, Chunjung Paket Tatan is. What they do that so much you talk, Javaris. That really is. You can't have a dog malis. They do Tanyake. Tan is only making around Yankton David Dama Sama Nane, Drupon Rinchen so bad someone around Jordan or Tenduchi, that's not Gawachi, set to last most.
So then the Dhamma came to report to Milarepa and said, he really is calling for you. And speaking of you, he did not scold you at all. And he's asking you to come. And Milarepa was still a bit suspicious, and he was wondering whether this time this is actually true. And anyways, he went and took his place in front of the Lama. And then the Lama said that, so I have put the great magician Milarepa through all these hardships in order to purify his evil karma. And had this construction of the towers been for myself, I would have been more gentle on him, but his karma needed to be purified. So therefore, what I did was correct. And also, as for my wife, Dagmema, she was in a way correct because she had great compassion for Milarepa. And so therefore, she came up with a devious plan. However, because of that, this devious plan of forging the letter and not being truthful caused a slight obstruction to enlightenment, which means that so had I had the opportunity to punish him 9 times, then Milarepa would have become a Buddha without leaving his physical body behind, without having to take another human birth. So without any karmic residue. But because of Dagmema's foolishness, he said, that I was only able to really put him through 8 great trials and many small difficulties. However, he said, now I shall accept you as my disciple and give you all the instructions you require, and will give you whatever supplies you may need for your retreat. So anyways, he said, all of these activities that were done, there was no fault in them because none of these hardships and activities were mundane, ordinary, or worldly activities.
Oh, teacher, I Jan, Melamina was me, Melamina, Nasina Ganya Begato Simation, Gacha, which on a chart, Lamata Yong Fagun, Lamagun, Lame, Sajubala, say Tam Kibata, Jason Ziba, to Jeshiba, Lama, Sunday most of the Yambeteba, and on the Zibija, we see a chap who be a Sofagun, she gave it to the Trojan Cologos water. Then Milarepa and the Melamina, then by Nazam. Sons Malamina, then by Malamina, you must in the guy, go raise on sons, got time working for sons, the chance to do cheese, the Lamangopa, the young dummy Hamoti, so in a Mara Tambo, so Sarje Alata, the Pajana, or Sarje, the Pajana, Tam cable. What the Jason to Jimbo. What in the Tanama, Sanjay most on this, you that you know what Loma Chimbats, Sanjay most on so for the sports, which is mostly. Tama game of stasi, it's a Gibona, so wasn't she's most.
So then, when Marpa had said that, Milarepa thought to himself, is this a dream or is this really happening? If it is a dream, then may I never wake up from this dream. He was so filled with joy that he cried. And he thought to himself, the Lama showed so much skill, as in taming him and purifying his negative karmas through all these trials and hardships. The Lama showed so much skill and so much compassion when accepting me as his disciple. So Milarepa then saw the Lama as the actual Buddha, and Dagmema was present and Mok were present, and together then they, with great joy, they offered a feast offering.
Tene so the no so pa gun so sa tu mo ke so ta don ba den ja je lu ju ne main la tang bo che du me le da na ro be da sa san la tu ji jen sen he ge nian ji don ba na chang chuo sem je la ba na ju ga ba le qin ye de de ne na ju wo ze le kan do na da ko ro be gu wo song de tu na ma ye ge de dam chu tene ma re ke tene ma la na we sa ma lun tong we ke同那么现在在上就办香港希望做吧也那时候就是用哇那那样上海没几希望那么的过路中呢真的得叫他出去赚你经过这把往过了外开进过了东北些对中堂进过了强国的从这边也进过了人从家统计进过的一些南嘎了恰定做这边与你可了东把与你学这边的顺便说你这种新波机包括看着差那边我说同学这些那边进过啊这些头上这些吧都这些大呢我真的大概念东把那长久先比东把听那松是我真的没啥都这讲真是没啥都这讲真是他你们那路去但没那么这都这讲真都这讲真这都这有吧他你们没那么说可长我听刚没打啥的都这讲我这是从真的强个吧的程度人家看到人家从那个下的程度都是在张博那买一张就你把马瑞些他妈没来吧那从上满通其实dem de ya bonda son stere dem jo ha chu chu wa go tu ne tan dun son jing for de son ja bei jing for de son ji tong jing for de se de nam ha de chang zo de son de uni za bi ni uni za bi de tu qian bo ji la so za de ko lo de be ha zo so ma cha la nam ha tong jo de wo de ru qin ne la ma da sang me ke mai sang tian de xie ba de se wo de ye dam de ni ke se xie ba de se mai da son mo
So then that evening then Marpa bestowed the vows of individual liberation onto Milarepa, the Patimoksha vows, and then the Bodhisattva vows. And then according to the dream that Marpa had in the past, he gave Milarepa the name Milarepa Dorjee Rinpoche, because in the past Marpa had the dream of the victory banner, which is Gyamtsen, and the Vajra, which is Dorjee, so Dorjee, Milarepa Dorjee Gyamtsen. And so then so he offered Milarepa during this ceremony a skull cup with many special blessings and nectar, and the rays of 5-colored light appeared from the skull cup. And then the Lama said, this is a very auspicious sign, this lights appearing from the skull cup. And so then he gave an empowerment. He gave the extensive empowerment of Chakra Samvaras, 62 deities. And then as he revealed the mandala of the empowerment mandala, the entire mandala appeared in the sky. So Marpa pointed at the sky as he gave the empowerment and said the mandala is actually here. And then when he said that, Milarepa clearly saw Chakra Samvara surrounded by the dagas and the dakinis, the 24 sacred places, and the 32 sacred sites and the 8 charnel grounds and so forth. And so in the context of the empowerment then, Marpa conferred the secret, the tantric name upon Milarepa, the secret name of Baal Sheba Dorje.
The Junong Menga Jepananela, Menga Yamnata, Chalan teaching Banang, Jeborhan, which will not know the entry in Bangi, Sarah, Manam de Rachum, Sanjay Bala, Pantobando, Dami Manam de Rach, Con the Jeparagonian and Jeparagonian, Michi Badan Chudan, Karo, Mado, Tenechu Lamata, Lome Lamadan Karo, Navik, Lomachum, and Lobachuma, the Sumachiba in Chance of Bantumatan, Toba Loba, the Mamutu Chumai. In Bea Gobachum, some Pubatella long here, you bachun, Alayan Raki, you buy in Chipata Chamami by National Semi Montamami by Domode, Barbetas, Domba Pubate, Jopachi Pichi, and Trobajidan, Semita, Wonjan Semita, which you don't Chimbo, did John Vietnam, Dama, and be a Chaviche, and Chumi Marco, and Boyon, Sangi, Tombai, Churanke, Jebajan, Chering, want to encourage you one day, don't pass on some much better. Each way, lot of much which you la tambo, take some shit up Ninja, no matter someone the same day, don't want to machine but you catching you to the Relagun Sachiva. Taraniam Toje, Genome, Jerry, Vincent, Kinama, Chata, you got you there by your own more than Perachi by me. The Gavachi, no, then Ochumachi, Saint Obachi, Trovachi, didn't go so by him, want the month or by his Baran Zibele, there's some power, that's that. Marveke, Tambo, Chorana, no day, but also Hako songs. Yom Dami Malamia, what you those Namada, Kandronik, Loma, not to Shinkalo, China Suai, Yong is. What he someone chanting, someone didn't do upon races. Choran sound on bus food was a sound on but food you sounded long touch and those. Long here doing a Loma, Chimbo Shayung, Dimji Jacksons. In a sound, Tomba produce, Tomba produce then. China Yamnachi Galan so what the Bangladesh is. What in China semi, Mamma Lubju so long to Yabonia. Damas Yapon Yamnachi to be achieved to make Mark Carlo is what it is. What in Yachimbo, something a key, Jetonchi don't is the don't what it is. And she wanted cut it to the George to ease he the chapel. One day, Marton to hit you with near Lachina. A lot of much about it. Chuna looked to the Teba, the Shera, Ninja Chimbo, Mamma, got it new routine and Yamnachi to Yamambo in York. Chine, Timjin Jason, they got you then by Davai and more than Periak. Timji Yabon Day, so on those as latest.
And so then Marpa explains to Milarepa, and he said that I already knew from the very beginning that you were a worthy disciple, a proper vessel for the teachings, because in the very beginning, before you had even arrived, I had a dream, an auspicious dream, that showed that you would benefit the teachings, and Dagmema had a similar dream. Also, when we met with me as a farmer plowing the field, I actually went there intentionally to greet you. And then you drank all the beer that I gave you and plowed the entire field, which was a sign that you will be a proper vessel, a worthy recipient for the teachings. And then the 4 handles on the copper kettle that you offered me later were a sign of the coming of 4 great disciples. And then the vessel didn't have any blemishes, which was a sign that that your mind there will be a few blemishes in your few mental afflictions in your mind. And however, you offer that kettle empty, and that was a sign that you will not have proper sustenance as you practice. And so in order to bring you sustenance, bring you resources later in your life and also to your line of disciples, then I filled the kettle with melted butter from my offering lamps. And then I rang the copper kettle loudly, as loud as I could, and that was a sign to secure your great renown in future times. And And despite all the hardships that I have put you through, you never develop wrong views. And as a result of that, all the disciples in your lineage will possess the qualities of authentic disciple, such as they will possess devotion, faith, and they will be diligent, will have wisdom and compassion. And as a result of your lineage, the teachings of the Kagyu lineage will expand.
that's an interesting chief, and then this come Jalawa. Or this cycle something from this section, to tension, take what this and to come Jalawa, she need tension. Young tension, Himba, the Gumpan, to Yidam, so Louis Dam, Nala Rangimajo, Squam, the Nala Rangiman, Jasonagis. What is Gom then? So Carina, Chiba Yomari. Take one now, Pinto Chimboyote, Carsena, Jezonik, Chito, Jerem China, Idam Gom, Zorem China, the Shinek, the Mayan, what the Semnachia. What the Chi, the Jerem Demba to be a Pinto Yori, the Shinate, Yamnachi to be a Pinto, what to do Gumpian, Gomna degree. The Nicotan Shinek, Pashida, not to show you out in the Carigona, Susundoba Chitene, Tangaranso, these. That's your main, but in the is.
So then we stop the teachings here and we do some meditation. And so last week we spoke about the shamatha with the support, and there's a different shamatha with the support that you can also practice. And so you can also visualize yourself as your Yidam deity, and it doesn't matter which Yidam deity it is. Any Yidam deity is fine. And the Yidam, you should visualize the Yidam appearing clearly and yet lacking any substantial nature, just like a rainbow appearing in the sky. And if you use the Yidam visualization as a support for your shamatha, it actually also will be helpful to later on accomplish the generation and completion stages. So the generation stage then is the visualization of the Yidam. And so in this case, now the completion stage would be the resting calmly, so in shamatha, without any distraction in the mind. And so if you practice this, then it will be of benefit to later accomplish the generation stage and the completion stage. So last week, we mentioned already a few different techniques, different methods of practicing shamatha. And of all these methods that we have mentioned, you can choose any one. So you can practice any kind of form of a shamatha practice, whichever suits you the best. So the most important point is that you meditate without distraction. So now we will meditate.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. This is what you mean. But number three, lawyer, see.
And then we stop here today and continue with Milarepa's story next week.
Then what the digital deal that Milarepa Yamna Chihap or Chahar that auntie Tamatop song Satirima and Yamna Chihap.
So we will next continue with the way in which Milarepa actually practiced.
Very yeah.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage laws, divine assembly of Yidams, assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yogis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions. Please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate root of virtue, not result in innate worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth of the Shravaka or Prateka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise at the time of my death. May I not die with confused thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of mind as such, and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the unknown.
Yeah, Tama Tuji and Tadami.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, teacher.
Gracias, Rinpoche.
Thank you very
Buenas
much,
noches.
Rinpoche.
Hola.
Good night, teacher.
Good night. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'm Jakarta, Indonesia.
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
Indonesia. Good morning, Asia.
Yeah. Thank
See
you.
you next week.